up your engine!
Well, here's an interesting one. I always thought Canadians were honorable people, always saying they're sorry for what happened. It turns out that there's some sleazy Canadians too. The Windor Chrysler dealer was fined yet again for an advertising violation. It turns out they advertised low prices for cars, but it was only for employees. And they didn't say that. So people came in expecting this low price for their car. They'd say, oh, well, you can't buy that. You're not an employee. I never met a Canadian like that myself. All the ones I met were nice. I went to school up in Toronto. Hey, really nice people. But I guess, like they say, a car salesman is a car salesman. That's an international one, I guess. Now, this particular fine was for $17,500 for advertising cars for sale at a low price that only the employees of Chrysler could get and not somebody coming in off the street. They have a code of ethics. It's supposed to have transparency. You got a price. That's the price you pay. And they weren't telling people that. No, that's only for employees. The same dealership in 2019 advertised a Ram for sale. They didn't say that it wasn't available to the public. They were fined then, too. And back in 2016, the same Windor Chrysler, they were fined $3,500 for the same thing, not telling people that it was only employee pricing, and for selling a person a car that had $5,137 of damage. And they didn't tell the person who bought it from them used that it had been in a wreck. Most places do have that disclosure law. Even in the United States today, you got to tell people if, car's been in a wreck. If you're selling it, if it has been, they got to disclose everything they know, and they didn't. So, if I were you people in Windsor, Ontario, I'd stay away from Windor Chrysler. They don't sound like the most honest people on the planet. Which just ruined my faith in Canadians. I thought they were all upright and honest, like Dudley Do-Right in the Mounties. Now, here's some interesting technology. It turns out that Hyundai is planning on using diesel crankcase pressure to eliminate turbo lag. Step on the gas, the turbo's got to spool up before it starts giving some power out. They're going to have a system where they can take the crankcase pressure, which is a lot in diesel because they got heavy pressure inside, store it up, and then when they go to accelerate, they use that pressure to push to make the turbo work better, to give it better boost. Interesting technology. Now, of course, it's diesel engines, and Hyundai does not sell diesels in the United States. They sell them in the rest of the world. But it's pretty interesting technology. They're basically taking wasted energy, crankcase pressure, and using it to give boost when you're accelerating. Now, Volvo has a similar one, but it uses energy, and it's less efficient. They use a pump that's driven, and it fills up a big pressure canister with extra pressure, and then when you go to take off, that goes through to boost the turbo to make it spin faster. The Hyundai system is actually pretty simple. It just works by pressure differential. When one pressure is higher and the other's lower, it goes that way. And if it isn't, it doesn't use it. So, hey, pretty interesting technology for diesels. Gotta say. It beats adding a pump like the Volvo did, that you have to buy the pump, and then that's using energy, so you lose a little bit of efficiency there. Hyundai system is using a crankcase pressure that's there anyways and in abundance in a diesel engine and using it to boost the turbo when you take off. These engineers come up with some pretty interesting stuff. Now, here's an interesting one for you electric car fans. It turns out Nissan does not sell any refurbished batteries in the United States as it stands today anyways for their Nissan Leaf electric cars. One guy who owns one in the United States, a Nissan Leaf, found out that if he lived in Japan, he could get a 24 kilowatt hour Nissan Leaf battery for $2,400 that's reconditioned with a 3-year warranty. But in the United States, for that same reconditioned battery, he'd have to pay $10,000, and the ones he looked at didn't even come with a warranty. Now, there's over 150,000 Nissan Leafs in the United States. They sold a reasonable amount of them. But Nissan doesn't seem to care about the batteries in their own cars, making them readily available at a good price. And to me, listen to old Scotty. He knows what he's talking about. I tell people don't buy Nissans for various reasons. Their quality, they just don't hold up over time. Something that I have in my head, and I haven't talked about much, is parts availability. Nissan has always been kind of a crappy company when it comes to parts availability. One, they have a lot of weird little parts that they use only on a few models. Often you have to go to the dealer to buy a part, and they just ring you over. I've seen them where Nissan or Infiniti, a power steering hose might be $395. You could only get it at the dealer because it's an odd shape. Where with the Toyota, you could go to AutoZone and buy an aftermarket hose that they have because they make so many that there's an aftermarket for them, and it might cost you $70 instead of like $385. And Nissan isn't very good at giving information out to we mechanics, the aftermarket mechanics. They're real stinkers. When they started coming out with you had to reprogram them, they made it very hard for us to get the data to reprogram stuff, where companies like GM and Ford and Toyota made it readily available at a nominal fee to mechanics. Some of them will charge like $45 for a day's use. Some of them have a subscription by month. Nissan was a real stinker about that, and they continued to show that they don't care about their customers by selling all these electric cars and not even caring about in the United States. Oh, where are they going to get batteries? What are they going to do about it, Not just electric cars, but it shows that Nissan is a company doesn't know what it's doing half the time or doesn't care about their customers. It's not surprising that that guy ran away when they were going to take him to court in Japan and hid. It's not just the guy at the top is rotten. The whole organization, they really don't care about their customers. They're selling electric cars. Oh, we're going to sell electric cars. Then they don't even have a situation where they can get a good deal on having batteries for these cars. They're going to wear out. They're batteries. They wear out. If you got to spend in the United States 10 grand for a reconditioned battery on a car that's probably got 100-something thousand miles and it's old, most people are never going to spend that kind of money. So you throw the car away, right? Really stupid, Nissan. Get your head out of your behinds and start thinking about your customers for once. Now, here's something I didn't see coming. It turns out that the 2021 RAV4 Prime is now the quickest Toyota four-door vehicle that they have. It's got the bigger battery. It's a Prime. So you can use the battery to run on battery power alone, or you can drive it as a hybrid, where it combines the two. Now, the fancy one is a 302 horsepower engine. You combine that with the electric boost with electric motors, it's extremely fast. It can go 0 to 60 in 5.7 seconds, and that's really fast for a little SUV. They're not all that fast. This one is. And it can also go up to 42 miles on electricity alone. Not a bad idea. I was driving a customer's Prius Prime the other day, and that thing can go 25 miles. Well, this one can go almost twice that. It can go 45 miles. That's a reasonable amount you can drive on electricity alone. But if you want to use electricity and the motor, it is the fastest four-door Toyota out there. Kind of interesting. I never thought a RAV4 was going to be the fastest thing. When they first came out with them, they had a little bitty four-cylinder engine, and they lasted forever. They're a little bit on the clunky side, the early ones. If you take a look at a picture of any of these old RAV4s, they're kind of weird looking. They weren't all that fast, but boy, have they evolved. It's now their fastest four-door because it's got the electric motor and the hybrid motor. And electric motors, I always tell people, have instant power and instant torque as soon as you turn them on, so you don't have to rev them up. It's a real boost, and it makes those things super fast. So people might think, oh, you got a RAV4, a little suburban car? Ha ha! You could blow all the doors off a lot of cars with that thing. Jason Spradling says, Scotty, what you thought on a 2013 Buick Encore? I bought one 6 months ago with 80,000 miles, 6-speed automatic. I haven't had any problems. You think I can get 200,000 miles? Well, if you drive like, the little old lady from Pasadena, not the one in the song, the one who actually lived in Pasadena. They don't really even make Buicks anymore in the United States. Everything they make is SUV. They haven't sold that many of them. Kind of tells you they're not the greatest vehicles. The interesting thing was, about a year ago or so, they sold 275,000 Buicks in the United States, but they sold 2.75 million in China. Now, the ones in China were made in China. And the bizarre thing about it is they don't even say Buick. The Chinese, for some reason, like that Buick emblem, the crest. And they got that, but it doesn't say Buick. The world's getting stranger and stranger. Chinese love them. It's like the businessman's car. It's like what a Cadillac was in the 1950s to America. The modern Buick is in China, from what I've read. But buying one in the United States, I hope you didn't pay much for it, because you never know. You might get a bunch of miles. Change the oil every 5,000 miles. Baby it. Don't drag race in it, because the transmissions are the weakest point in those things. You never know. You might get lucky and drive it around. I just hope you didn't pay too much, because they aren't worth all that much. Dominic wants a Scotty. I know you don't do a lot with four-wheelers, but I have a Sportsman at Bogs Center, full throttle. Starts idles like a champ. Any ideas? 99 times out of 100, it is a carburation problem. Now, of course, if it's got a filter, replace the filter. If you don't use it much, take the tank off, clean it, blow the line out, sludge will build up. But most of the time, it's carburetors. You don't use those things all the time. Gasoline gets gunk and it clogs up the tiny orifices. I would say get a carburetor gasket kit for it. Take it all apart and clean them all with carburetor cleaner. And if it's really gunked up inside, get one of those 3-quart containers of cleaner, like Varsol, and then you take the carburetor apart and soak the parts, and then if they soak overnight, all the crud comes off. Then when you clean them and put it together, they run like new. And I know some guys, they'll even have a spare carburetor. If there's those things, you can get a carburetor cheap enough somewhere online. They have a spare one, then they put the spare on, then in their spare time, they clean the other one. So when the first one gets clogged, they just swap the carburetor out. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.